welcome Dr. Alison Parker. A new book has just been released. So it's called Mom is the Missing Link. The Power is Within You. And we're going to get into that in a minute. But I think before we do that, Dr. Parker, if you could just sort of tell the listeners a little bit about yourself to kind of get warmed up and just get a feel for who you are first. And then maybe we can kind of segue into the book if that works for you.
That works fantastically for me. Thank you. Sure. My name is Dr. Alison Parker, and I am a private practice literacy coach, and I am in Brooklyn, New York City, which is where I reside. I was born and raised in New York City. I attended New York City public schools, and I worked for New York City public schools for 26 years. I've been in private practice as my own boss, tutoring children. I started as an academic summer camp, and then I transitioned into private tutoring in two capacities, one-on-one tutoring and then small group tutoring as well. And so what I found was that parents were in need of a solution to help students who are struggling readers.
So that was a great introduction, and you have a wealth of knowledge to share here. The subheading for your book is 25 Powerful Pedagogical Practices to Help You Close the Reading Achievement Gap for Your Child. So maybe we can kind of get into the book a little bit, and you can talk about what inspired you to write this.
So pedagogical practices link to the word pedagogy. Pedagogy is the art and science of teaching children. So that's my craft. And in my travels as both a teacher and a literacy coach, the biggest crisis and the biggest problem is that not enough children are reading on grade level. In fact, if we look at the research, grade 4 students and grade 8 students in America, 2/3 of them are not reading on grade level. So it's a crisis. So I decided to dump my knowledge base from my mind and from my head with all my practices that I used as a classroom teacher and that I currently use in my private practice to provide a set of instructional strategies, if you will, for mothers who may have children that are struggling and that are searching for a solution. So my book has 25 pedagogical practices, and the way the book is set up, it's set up in 5 parts, part 1 through part 5. And so first I define what the reading achievement gap is, which there's a disparity between where kids are currently performing and where they should be in terms of grade level expectations. And the book is set up in 5 parts to help mom select from the series of practices for students as early as infancy. In fact, I take mom back to, if you're pregnant now, here are 5 strategies you could implement. If you have a child between birth and age 2, implement these pedagogical practices. If your child is already in school and is currently performing below grade level and is in grades K through 2, implement these, 3 through 5, 6 through 8, etc., etc. So I wanted to create a manual, a guide, if you will, so that mom could, no matter what age, what grade, mom can utilize the book depending on where her child is in child development. Parenting is, I believe, an issue that impacts parents' mindset on how they interact with their children. And so some mothers believe reading starts at school. You start reading when you're in kindergarten. You start reading when you start formal education. Somebody other than me is going to teach you. But what I do is I empower mom and help her realize and become more conscious and more aware that the reading achievement gap actually starts at home. It doesn't start at school. It starts at home. And that, hey, mom, here are some things that you could do between being pregnant and before you even send your kid off to school. How about we work on these activities that are all play-based and play-like that you could implement just by having conversations and using your voice to empower your child in language. So I introduced the topic of phonemic awareness and how parents can play games, rhyming games, work on something what we call first sound fluency. Hey, if this is a bat, and this is a ball, what's the first sound in bat? What's the first sound in ball? What's the first sound in book? Mom can be working on letters and sounds at home. Many mothers wait until you start school to learn that information. But this is incorrect thinking because the brain is ready to receive this information. And we'd rather provide students with phonemic awareness support, phonics support, fluency, vocabulary development, both receptive language and expressive language development while they're at home. And a lot of parents they're just not aware. Too many mothers are not aware of this, and they could be unknowingly contributing to the reading achievement gap. So I want to bring attention to mothers and let them know that they're powerful. And here are a set of pedagogical practices that they could implement to strengthen literacy at home.
You said so many really special things there. And thanks for breaking down pedagogy for our listeners too, because when you're outside of the education system, you might not know what that means, right? So that's something that also could feel intimidating. You know, some of the moms that you're mentioning, they feel like they don't have any power, and they feel like, you know, their role isn't as powerful and important as it genuinely is. And I love that you're using, you know, your book and your instructional practice to, you know, basically impart that confidence, because sometimes it's just a lack of confidence. It's been eroded. And it sounds like you've got a really very organized method for starting at a very young age. Like you said, even, you know, pre-birth, what mothers can do. And what themes do you think, you know, what main messages do you think that readers will come away with after giving this book a chance?
The biggest theme I want any reader to walk away with, particularly mom, is that the reading achievement gap starts at home, not at school. And then to take that theme and then apply it wholeheartedly to create a space at home where literacy can thrive. So we have an organized space where reading is a routine. It's not a chore. It's not a, oh my God, bring the book. It's today we're going to read, or what book do you want to read today? Or today we're going to read this poem. You know, mom is aware of the power of language, her language in her child's life, to help grow children as readers exponentially. The more words children know, the better readers they can be. The second theme I'm hoping readers will walk away with is that the reading achievement gap has existed for over 5 decades, and I strongly believe it will not close. Okay, this has been documented in the data since at least 1970, and why hasn't the reading achievement gap closed? Why? And I strongly believe it's because we need mom involved, mom to be a real stakeholder. We consider mom a stakeholder, but do we really put her in a position where she's aware of the techno babble from education, and she's aware of what it means to develop phonemic awareness, to develop phonics at home, to develop fluency and vocabulary? We really have to empower mom because she's a true partner. And if she were more aware of her power, I believe that she would take the knowledge. And that's why I wrote the book, to ensure that her child is not one of the children in what we call the bottom 1/3 in a classroom, or a child who's not on the promotion and doubt list. So what can we do to empower mom and make her more aware that this gap is dire and that we need her help? So in my book, I impart my wisdom so that mom can A, become aware, and then B, be proactive and get started, because we can't do it without her. Teachers need mom. The children need mom, and the nation needs mom to rise up. We need an army of tutors, and I believe we can get that army from helping mom understand her role in developing literacy skills. And the last theme is, I strongly believe that we need an army of tutors, and I want to call this army, this movement that I'm creating, this group of women, syllable division queens. We have too many children in grades K through 12 who get stuck on words. I call these words tricky words, 1-syllable words, 2-syllable words. Kids don't know how to decode these words, 3-syllable words, 4 and 5-syllable words. And so if we teach children the 6-syllable types and the patterns that are in words, and we empower mom and teach her, then what can we create together? I believe that we can create this army, this powerful army that can help eradicate the reading achievement gap. I'm hoping that this book brings about change on a local level, a regional level, a national level, and a worldwide level, where we start paying more attention to what we can do to empower mothers, because they spend the most time interacting, talking with, and parenting children.
That is so true. And like you said, if you wait until, say kindergarten, so say age, 4 or 5, all that time has passed. That time is precious. And if this was implemented, and if more people were just aware of it and knew what to do, like you said, they might notice an issue. Some people might, but they're not even sure where to begin. And it can be really overwhelming. They have so many things on their plate. So I think having this, a movement, as you described, where everybody is then part of that partnership, would maybe lessen that feeling of being overwhelmed. And I think it could do great things. You mentioned earlier about grade 4 and 8, the gap being really noticeable. Is there anything from your, educational experience that happens in those grades? Is there something developmental, or is it just more noticeable because the type of reading they're doing at those ages increases? So the people with the gap, it's more noticeable in comparison to the same age peers. What happens at those times, do you think?
So nationally, data is collected on students in grades 4. So statewide data is collected from students who take standardized high stakes tests. So we look at data for students in grade 4 and 8, and then have conversations about that data. So I just wanted to spread awareness and make people aware that it's these 2 grades at the elementary school level and at the middle school level, whereby there's a huge achievement gap. If we think about K through 3, kids are learning how to read. 4 through 8, they're taking what they know about letters, about sounds, about vocabulary, and how to decode words, and they're focusing on comprehension, understanding high level, complex, mostly nonfiction text, and even literature. Children are struggling because a great deal of them can't get past 100 words that they could read fluently. So if you can't read 100 words fluently, how can you read this 3-page article, this 2-page article? How are you going to perform on this statewide test when you struggle to read words fluently? As small as a group of 100 words. A lot of children struggle with that. So there's this thing called miscue analysis, how we can help parents, mothers specifically, pay attention to the errors that children are making and learn how to coach them. So I have a framework in my book for how mothers can learn how to coach their children to be their children's reading rescuer. So when kids are stuck on a word, they know what to say other than sound it out. Sound it out does not help children become readers. Having them pay attention to vowels, to consonants, looking at the whole word from left to right. There are patterns that we can help children look at in words. That's part of what I do in my private practice. Not enough parents, I can't think of any parents except the parents I'm teaching in my private practice how to do this. They're not even vowels, consonants, digraphs, what are blends. They're not aware of the techno babble. And so what I want to do is make them more aware, because not only so that they could increase the probability of scoring higher at the 4th grade level or for the 8th grade level. I'm thinking beyond that. Literate people have a better life than illiterate people. Illiterate people don't earn enough money in their lifetime. So having low literacy rates negatively impacts people's wealth building capacities as well.
What starts as kind of we're talking about literacy. Now you know, we realize though that is, it's systemic as well, but then now you've got, it's affecting family, it's affecting, you know, the economy, it's affecting, you know, behavior, it's affecting everything. So it's this huge picture when somebody thinks, oh, you know, sound it out. That's kind of where the conversation starts when we're young, and that not understanding that that's not enough, you know, to say those kinds of things, to come from a place where you don't understand why that might not work with certain things too. So I have one of my daughters was diagnosed with dyslexia very young. And that whole sounded out thing used to frustrate me because it did not work. And people would just, you know, be very flippant about it and say that. And there's so much more to the whole, like you said, you described it as a science, this, you know, the science of literacy, the science of language. And I loved that because I think sometimes what worked for one person, they think that should work for everybody. But not everybody's a gifted reader. Not everybody has somebody from a really young age reading to them or with them or modeling that. So this is incredible.
I just want to piggyback on what you
said.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. And so most 95 to 98% of the clients who come into my private practice since 2012 are dyslexic children. And they come to my office because the classroom teachers don't know how to help them. They're on the promotion and doubt list. You know, mom is in tears. She's distraught. She doesn't know how to help the kid. The classroom teacher doesn't know how to help the kid. You know, they're at a disadvantage. So that's why we need to empower mothers with how to help children when they're stuck on a word, and the 5 pillars of reading as a whole. So developing phonemic awareness, which is auditory processing, helping children understand what rhyming words are at a young age, first sound fluency, letters and sounds, immersing them by reading to them to children, with children, and by children very early on, and maintaining that beyond early childhood. 4th graders need to be read to. 3rd graders need to be read to. You know, we need to ensure that middle school students are reading, that high school students are reading beyond what is assigned at school, because we know readers are leaders, and we want our children to be powerfully literate so that they're accurate and fluent and confident readers. We can't do this without mom. Syllable Division Queen Home Study course. It's an online digital course. I also have 3 ebooks focused on dyslexia. The first one is basically called Demystifying Dyslexia. The next one is called Demystifying Dyscalculia, which is a disability in math. And the third one is called Demystifying Dysgraphia, which is a learning disability in writing. So to try to hit all 3 domains, reading, writing, and math, to help empower mom. Just quick ebooks to support the main book, my core product, Mom is the Missing Link. So I'm sitting thinking, how can I best support mothers, not only at my private practice, but out there in the world that are searching for solutions. So the 3 ebooks, as well as the Syllable Division Queen course. And finally, at my website, mothers can click and join my community, where I'll be modeling best practices and providing key information for parents and answering their questions. Who is answering the questions of mothers when their kid is stuck on a word, or when they have a question about, other than going to Google? A real educator who really is working in the field could support these mothers. So I created a community as well.
I love that. And what you said about, you know, the mothers in tears, I could relate to that, because I kept almost blaming myself, because here I was educated and was an early reader. And I thought, how can I'm still not able to fully help her, because, you know, like you said, dyslexia is not the same as the way that I learned to read. And I didn't have the tools. So I ended up, similar to what you offer, I got a private coach eventually, but several years passed because I was trying to use just the system the way that it was. And there were a lot of gaps. And like you said, even educators and teachers didn't have the specific know-how when it came to dyslexia. So, and then we haven't even spoken about this, but the fact that there might be 25, 30 children in a class, your own child is not getting a large, piece of that time. So there's a lot of problems with that. So your idea to have, these division queens then takes it fully out of the school. And I think it's a more helpful approach because it, like you said, it's local, it's grassroots, it's small group. And I think that that's just a way better approach than these large classrooms where the child just gets lost in that and embarrassed, to be centered out as well. So that's great. Thanks for sharing those digital resources. I will put the links in this as well for people looking for that. If you thought there was one practice that parents could implement today, if you could choose one, you've given us a lot, but if you could pick one of the most important things you think parents could do, what would that be?
The number one practice, I would say, which is so simple but so profound, is reading to your child on a daily basis and not skipping a day, not skipping a day. And so sometimes mothers feel overwhelmed and they think, oh my God, I need to read this 28-page picture book or this 20-page picture book. No, actually, you could read. Think about the days of a week and divide the book up into the number of days. So divide the book into 5 days and let your child know we're going to read these 5 pages or these 3 pages, or divide the book up into 7 days. And throughout the week, the kid will be excited and look forward to reading those 2 or 3 pages. So I want mom to understand that she doesn't have to read the whole book, but you have to read for your children to become readers. You have to read so that they can hear the language, so that they can hear the vocabulary. There's vocabulary in books that we don't use when we talk. And so what we want to do is expose children's brains to a more complex level of text so that they can learn more words. We want to increase their receptive language vocabulary so that we increase their expressive language vocabulary. So I think reading to your child and committing to it on a daily basis. Read as if life depends on it, because it literally does. I strongly believe that it does. We want our kids to be powerfully literate. We don't want them to be functionally illiterate. We don't want them to struggle in high school. We don't want them to start college and then stop because they have no strategies to how they should decode these longer words. As they increase in grades, the words get longer. Some words have 2 prefixes, 2 suffixes. Children have to learn how to decode words so that they can rise up socially.
I'm curious how you came to all of this, because everything you're saying is just so true from everything that I've also seen in my career. And it's such a powerful message. What was sort of your journey? Take us back. You said in, years and years in education, but at what point did you kind of think this is a huge crisis? Was it that first teaching job that you had, or did it come to you slower through your journey? What kind of got you interested in this in the first place?
I grew up in a household where reading was everything. Starts with that, I believe. I grew up in a household where books were readily available. We were expected to read, books were purchased, we could order books from Scholastic Book Club. Like, literacy was a big deal. My father and mother planted the seed that without an education, I'm African American. If you're African American and you live in America and you're not educated, you will not thrive here. So that was a seed that was planted at a young age. When I became a teacher in 1998, I taught 4th grade for the first 6 years of my career. And just like the data states, students are not performing on grade level. And so I had students that were reading beautifully. I had students sort of in the middle, and I had students at the bottom. And I spent most of my instructional time helping them. But what I know is if I could empower mom so that mom could use these strategies that I'm implementing in the classroom at home, then the kid would have this double dose. When it really, really became crystal clear to me that I had to write this book, I believe through my private practice, because that's where children are getting one-on-one attention. So in a classroom, unless you have a rock star teacher who's going to differentiate for you and commit to you and give you the blood, sweat, and tears that we know our low-level readers need, in my private practice, I realized, hey, Alison, you've got kids one-on-one, but this is still not enough. I need to teach mom what I'm doing. So sometimes I record the sessions and give the Zoom sessions to mom, but I know I needed a book so that mom could tap into the book. And then I need a community so I could answer your questions. And then I need to create this course. So it became really, really clear once I finished my dissertation, February 2022, that the next step for you, once you're done with this dissertation, is for you to bring this stuff to life. And it's taken this long for me to do it because I've been working full time in the public schools, and then in the evenings and weekends, I tutor at my private practice. So my hands have been full for the last few years. But it's my mission in the next year to coach and support at least, if I could do more, that would be phenomenal. At least 1,000 new mothers, what I know, because I want to empower them. Children, to look into the face of a child who's struggling, that is incredibly painful to watch. I struggled in school as a child, not with literacy, but with math. Probably I'm thinking I have dyscalculia. Like I could do math, but higher level math I struggle with as a child from 4th grade, which goes along with the data, to 12th grade. And my mom used to say back in the years then, 70s, 80s, this is new math. I can't help you. I don't know how to do this. I was completely lost. There was no explicit instruction at school. So I pretty much got pushed along year after year because I was a good girl who was quiet and nice, who was clueless in math. And so children are also struggling with the learning disability in math, which is dyscalculia. That's why I wrote that ebook, because our children are struggling, and they're getting pushed along, and they become adults who can't suffice socially. And it's really a shame. It's a crisis. It's a crisis.
It's so interesting because you came from a family where you said reading was so valued, and you had books and access to books, and you had to read, and it was encouraged. And it's interesting because for a lot of kids, who they might not have that, but if they do, they might not have the math piece. So I like how you said that just because you're an early reader, or you have reading model, doesn't mean that that will also be the case with math. Sometimes it's not. So you might find that people are coming to you, or people are, asking for your private practice services or picking up the digital resources who are more into the math disability, like you said. So I think that's important for people to know that you might not fit all of these categories that we're talking about, but you might have a child or know somebody who fits one of them. How do people come to your practice? Are they referred from somebody? Are you in touch with the school board or a particular local school? How does that work?
So right from the community, people pass by my office and they ring my doorbell, or they send me a text message, or they go to my website and they send me an email, or I know a few teacher friends who refer their students who are struggling, who they can't seem to figure out how to help. And I tell them that this child has dyslexia, and they're thinking, does the child have dyslexia? Not enough teachers understand dyslexia either. And we have to empower teachers too. So there's a crisis because there's a lack of awareness and a lack of knowledge on how to help the most vulnerable students we have. And so some teachers refer their students to me, and I give them a referral fee and thank them for that, to encourage them to continue to send them. And so parents who are my current clients also refer friends and family members to me. But my private practice does not get students from school systems. It's by way of teachers and parents and just people who are aware of me who refer other people because they seen that I've gotten great results for their children.
That word of mouth is important because then they can refer to somebody and they've got that personal anecdote, that personal success story, what worked, and that information. It's just so powerful. I know I mentioned my daughter before, but once she had gone through that coaching process and she had these skills, now whenever she gets into a new classroom, she goes right up to the teacher and describes, what works for her and everything. And it's been empowering for her. So then in turn, that makes me feel so much better. So I can see exactly what you're saying when I saw the title of your book and I read the concept and everything. I thought that's so true because I know I felt the exact same way. It's just
So
powerful. Yeah.
You're saying that your daughter learned to self-advocate, and that's
Yes.
another thing that I provide in my coaching and my tutoring with my clients because just because you struggle in one area doesn't mean your gifts are not there. I constantly talk to my clients about how I struggled in math, but look at me, like I was able to become a successful woman. So just because you struggle in one area doesn't mean we can't find your gifts. So I also help them self-advocate and give them tools and tips. My clients get a tutoring binder that they take with them and they use when they're not with me between sessions. And I give them access to websites to help them so that it kind of feels like they're with me 7 days a week, even though most of my clients see me either 3 times a month or 6 times a month. So because I know the brain needs repetition and they need the encouragement, and it's just something that society is not offering struggling readers.
Have you seen a change in the moms too? Because if the kids are self-advocating and they're growing and they're probably feeling so confident once they have these skills, it's just life-changing. Do you see an impact on the families that you've worked with too? Do you get feedback about that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll give you an example of one of my second graders. And yeah, the mothers rave about me. They tell other mothers. And so they ask me constantly, how do you do it? This is my mission. When you're mission based, that's what gets me out of the bed in the morning. Like I almost feel like I'm saving lives because I know what it feels like to struggle. It's extremely painful. You feel like an idiot. You feel stupid. And unless you can find that one person to help build your confidence, for some people they never find that one person. And so I have a current client. He's a second grader. I met him about 13 months ago, about a year ago. And while he's eating snack, the first 5 minutes of the tutoring session, the kid eats snack. While he's eating snack, he constantly takes me back to last year. And he reflects and he says, Dr. Parker, when I met you, I wasn't confident. I didn't know. Now he knows the word insecure. I felt insecure. He reflects. If you go to my website and you scroll down to the bottom and click, there's his audio is there. And there's a couple of parents on my website as well who give testimonials. So there are 3 testimonials on the website. But what I love about what Carter constantly reminds his brain of is I used to be there, but now I'm here. So I'm going to keep utilizing these practices that you're teaching me because it's working. He even compares and contrasts. At school, we don't do this, but when I come here, I do this. And I remind him, and when you go home, I want you to practice this, this, and that. And so it's phenomenal to watch a child go from being a non-reader to a beautiful fluent reader. By January, he already met the standard for June of this year. By January, he was already there. So now we're focusing on his spelling and his writing because he can do the reading. He's an amazing client.
That's a wonderful example.
On
Yeah.
my website. His mother's on my website and 2 other mothers as well. So yeah, it's incredible to watch. It's what gets me out of the bed. It's my mission. And I want to lock arms with other mothers who are like-minded and want to develop literacy in their children, but just need support. That's why I wrote that book.
What's the next step? What's the next step to make this even bigger?
The next step, I believe, is to have people come on into my community and coach them and help them, and have one mother tell another mother until this thing grows into this national movement where maybe we could, I don't know, create reform on a national level, because I think something needs to change. Because education needs to be reformed. It can't just be teachers go to school for X years, they take a test, they become teachers. Obviously, this is not enough. It's not enough. So I think there needs to be reform at the national level. I don't know if there has to be reform in terms of parenting. I just want to bring awareness that if we shift parenting of mothers, we can shift and close that literacy gap. So I'm hoping just to bring more awareness at the national level.
Yeah, that's amazing. I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, it's such a big issue, right? It's big, but what I like about this is that by focusing on families, focusing on moms, it's you're choosing something that's smaller that you can begin there. And then, like you said, with your example with Carter, even now he's reflecting back on how changed he is. And I'm sure his mom feels the same. So it's like if it's one person, then another, and pretty soon, it's a whole community, and then it gets bigger and bigger. So I love the whole message. It's inspiring. It's very positive, because it's so easy to just dwell in how sad the gap is, and get stuck there. But by coming up with a plan, which you did in a mission, you're then able to always constantly move forward, so that we're not dwelling in the past, but let's move forward and make things better. And I think that's amazing. It's just everything that kind of my whole philosophy of why I even wanted to be a teacher. But sometimes you need to be reminded after you've been doing it for a few decades. Why did we get into this, right? And where's the passion, and kind of rekindle that, the love of that. So it's amazing. We're close to time. Do you have sort of a final thought or two that you want to share?
Well, I strongly believe that we can, as a nation, rise up. I strongly believe that if mom were more aware of her power, she would roll up her sleeves and she would join us in this mission. So I have all the faith in mom. School systems have proven that they are large and they're awkward, and there's several people with limiting beliefs about children who struggle, and it's time to take a new approach. And I'm hoping that this approach reaches the national level, and I could, meet my mission goal, which is to reach many, many, many more moms, so that I can help and support them. And we could start helping and supporting each other. I don't just want it to be parents are reliant on me. I want mothers to take that course and help other mothers help their children decode tricky words, and give them that structure and that framework for dividing long words, because I want students in grades K through 12 to become more empowered. It's time to rise up and do something different.
Absolutely. And it's transformative, because then their children pass that on to their children, and generations are changed. And that's the beauty of it, right? It doesn't stop with Carter now and other individuals. He then, if he has children one day, can use these same skills. So I think it's a beautiful thing. And I really appreciate all the knowledge that you shared in such a short time. Gives us lots to think about. So I'm going to end here, unless you have a final thought. But it's been such a pleasure. And I just wanted to say thank you, Dr. Parker, for speaking with me.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah. When we're finished here, I'm just going to put all of those links to everything that you mentioned in the conversation, and then I can edit all of this together and we'll share it with even more people. So thank you so much for today.
Thank you so much. You have a lovely rest of your day.
You too. Bye now.